Welcome to Getting Sketchy Live, brought to you by thevirtualinstructor.com. And now, let's get sketchy.
We're back.
We're back again.
We're back now. Of course, you would know that I would forget to push a button, and that was the muted microphone. So welcome to season 12 of Getting Sketchy, everyone. I know a lot of you have been waiting for a while, but we're back here, and I'm glad to have all of you guys that I see in the chat box tonight. Yes, we've got the sound working now. So I hope everybody's having a great evening tonight. There is a chat box, of course. If you're watching this on YouTube live, you can ask questions and post comments, but we do ask if you do have a comment or question that's directed at Ashley or I, if you use the super chat function, because that will help us see it a little bit easier. It does help out the channel as well if you do that. And Ashley is going to be doing the drawing tonight, and we'll talk to him in just a minute, but I will remind you what Getting Sketchy is all about. It's a live show, so anything can happen, like people forgetting to turn on the microphones. But one of us will try to create a drawing for you inside of 45 minutes. And like I said, Ashley's going to be doing the drawing tonight, and we'll have a timer and everything if you're new to this kind of stuff. And we're also going to sprinkle in a little bit of instruction in there as well. And Ashley, like I said, is doing the drawing. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks for asking. I'm glad to be back with you guys. Felt like a long break. A lot's happened since we were together. A lot of art making on our end, and I hope on your end as well. So yes, we're going to be making a drawing in charcoal tonight, and we'll take a look at our materials so that you can follow along. And if you have slightly different materials, it's pretty inclusive. So we'll use what we have and make the best work of art we can in 45 minutes.
Absolutely. And if you like this kind of stuff, then you would definitely love our live lessons that we have over at thevirtualinstructor.com. If you have not checked out thevirtualinstructor.com, then you are missing out, because what you see here on YouTube is a small part of what we do at thevirtualinstructor.com. There is a membership program. There are tons of courses. Like I said, we do weekly live lessons. Those don't go in seasons. Those are every single week, and those are more complete, finished pieces of artwork. If you want to learn more about our program, there is a link in the description below. I encourage all of you to check it out. If you haven't checked it out before, you'll be blown away by how much content is there and how much you can learn. And of course, everything is taught to you in an easy to understand format so that anyone can be successful. If you want to know more about the membership program, like I said, I'll leave a link in the description below. Also, if you're not on our mailing list, our emailing list, you should be on that as well, because I will send you a ton of free lessons if you sign up for that. You'll also get 3 course videos and free ebooks if you decide to sign up for that. There's also a link for that in the description below. And like always, since we're on YouTube, if you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Now, people are asking where the photo reference is for tonight. To find the photo reference, I have posted it on the community tab on the YouTube channel. So to get to the YouTube channel, you may be watching this video, but you might not be on the YouTube channel. You can click on the little icon of my face underneath this video that will take you to the YouTube channel. Then look for the community tab, and then the most recent post is that photo reference, so that you can have that photo reference to work alongside Ashley tonight if you want to. Now, Ashley's going to have a time limit of 45 minutes, give or take a minute or two. You don't have a time limit. You can go as long as you want. No problem. Take your time and create a drawing that you're proud of. And it does look like we've already got a super chat there from Jan. So when we switch over to the camera, I will give you the cheer for that. So thankful for that. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Jan.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, let's go ahead and switch over.
All right, we'll go ahead and switch over and get into this one.
All right, let's go ahead and see that super chat animation, and then we'll talk about and I'll get my materials
and
out.
Thanks again to Jan for that. We're very thankful for that. That's what you get when you do the super chat there. And Jan's comment, of course, says, "So happy to see the best live broadcast in all of YouTube back." And yeah, you're right. I forgot to say that tonight. I'm a little rusty, I guess, with the Getting Sketchy here, forgetting to push buttons and all that kind of stuff. But
we'll be back. We'll get back into the swing.
We'll get back into it for sure. All right, go ahead, Ashley.
All right, let's go ahead and start. So you see our reference there on your screen on the left. It's architecture tonight. It's I'm not sure where it's from. This is an image from Pixabay, so it's a copyright-free image. But it's a cathedral. It looks like it may be some sort of an Orthodox cathedral. But what attracted me to the image is all that atmosphere. I mean, there's a dome in there in the foreground, and there's a dome just sort of fading out and disappearing in the background. And there's more information and less information in various places because of all that heavy atmosphere. So
it looks thick.
Yeah, it's thick. That's some humidity right there. Looks like we're looking right into a
or
cloud.
Smoke.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. So that's what we're going to try to capture tonight. You know, this is a show about sketching, and when we sketch, sometimes we have a sort of it's like a study, and it could be a character study. You know, we could do just a line drawing in ink with no shading to try to study all of the details. But we're going to use charcoal, which is kind of a big loose medium. It's great for details, really, if you're working large enough. And we'll talk about the size of our paper in just a moment. But we're going to be using that loose, free quality of the charcoal to try to capture a feeling of atmosphere tonight between the foreground and the background. So let's go ahead and address the paper. It is 7 inches wide by 8.5. It's really 8.43, but I just measured 8.5 inches tall. So my slight discrepancy shouldn't mess up the proportions more than I'll probably mess them up on my own. So 7 by 8.5. Now the paper I'm using is white, and it's Canson colorline paper. So it's not a charcoal paper, which usually has a tooth to it, some ridges, some linear ridges on there. But it's a good paper, and it feels like on the colorline paper, that there's there's 2 sides and 2 surfaces, and one surface is a little smoother than the other. I've selected the less smooth surface, so there is a noticeable texture or tooth to the side that I chose. But and I don't know if I chose right, so we'll see how it goes on this side, and maybe moving forward I'll use the smooth side. I don't know, but I thought the slightly textured side might be best since there is typically a tooth or a texture in charcoal paper. So
yeah, and that's important. Yeah, you need to have some type of tooth or texture when you're using charcoal.
Something to hold on to it.
You want to stay away from Bristol paper.
Oh, yeah.
In other words.
Yeah. So the charcoal that I'm going to use tonight, because we do want to be able to move it around easily, is mostly vine charcoal, and this is vine charcoal. You can tell, the sticks aren't even totally straight, so they're just vines that have been, heated and charred. But I do have a little bit of compressed charcoal in powder form. So it's going to get pretty dusty. I'm going to get pretty dirty tonight. And I bought it because it's advertised as powder. So I want to show it to you before we start. So I've got a separate piece of paper. I'm going to try to tip. Oh, yeah, there we go. You can see it rolling around. Man, have you ever seen?
It's not very powder-like, is it? No.
Look at that. So they're really powder pellets.
Yeah.
That's what they're charcoal pellets. So let me set that to the side without spilling it, and I'll show you what I've done. You could do this with your regular compressed or vine charcoal. You do not need the powdered charcoal. So what I've done is I've poured out some pellets and actually crushed them up with the end of a drawing pencil. So now I have charcoal powder. So it was almost charcoal powder. And I realized that I like it. Maybe I wasted my money, because I can crush up vine charcoal just the same. And so you can do that at home. If you'd like to crush up a little bit of vine charcoal, again, you don't have to. We're going to start by spreading some charcoal softly over the entire surface. And I'm going to use the more powdered charcoal that I've crushed up, but you could also just use vine charcoal across the surface and then smear it with a paper towel, or a large stump or something like that. So speaking of paper towels, I don't have one. I have this instead, and you can see it's pretty clean. So we'll see how this works. It's like a chamois.
ShamWow.
ShamWow, right? It's gonna pick up the spills. So I think it was advertised as like a word that starts with a C. Camisole? I don't think that's right. I feel like that's something you wear. Anyway, It's some sort of a skin or a hide, really really soft. Kind of reminds me of golf glove actually. So we'll break that out. With regard to erasers, I do have a kneaded eraser, and I'll definitely be using that. And I've got a couple of little pink erasers that have been cut up into small pieces, just so I've got some little edges to work with that'll stay kind of sharp if I need those. Additionally, I had a black Factus eraser, but I don't see it right now, so I won't be using that. I do have the electric eraser just in case I need it, but I don't really foresee using the electric eraser at all because it really digs through. But we'll see. Maybe we'll need it around the edge of something. So we'll see. It's an option. Now, I plan to try to use a brush to spread the charcoal initially, and then we may switch to our chamois. So there's you could also use a brush. This is a nylon bristle brush, like the golden, I think they're called golden talcum bristles, I believe. And so they're pretty soft. It's a watercolor brush. It's a broad watercolor brush. But like I said, you could use a brush. You could even just use a tissue or a paper towel. So again, you don't need the exact same materials I have because charcoal is so free and forgiving. So let's see. The only other supply that I will be using, and I'll be using it a lot, are stumps and a tortillon. So this is the tortillon. It's just tightly rolled paper into a cone. You can see one end is hollow. They're pretty disposable. You know, once they get really dirty or bent on the tip, you just throw them out and use another one. The stumps are a little bit more durable. They can be cleaned off with sandpaper and sort of sharpened or resharpened to a point with sandpaper. So you can work those down, but I don't ever seem to keep up with them long enough to shorten one. So I've got a dirty one and I've got a clean one. So we're going to be using those a lot. And I think that's a lot of little items, but I think that's it for our materials. So, man, I believe we're about ready to get started. Oh, incidentally, there's no grid or anything like that. We're just going to go for it and see where things land on our paper. And again, it's fine charcoal. So if we've got a gross mistake in terms of proportion or placement, we'll be able to shift and move things around as we go. But you know, we're really going to try to focus more on the atmosphere and just kind of keep the proportions and the details in the back of our mind while we do so.
Okay. Right. And someone asked how you get on the newsletter a while back, and there's a link in the description below. Just look for the link that says free course videos. So that will put you on our newsletter. All right. Are you ready for me to start the timer?
Yeah, let's go ahead and start the timer.
45 minutes on the clock, and there it is on your screen as well.
All right. So I'm going to start with the brush. I'm down in the bottom where it's really dark because I'm not exactly sure how dark this is going to look on our color line paper.
Oh, you can really see the texture being picked up.
Yeah, you can.
There.
It's really picking it up.
So are you going to tone the entire surface, or are you just basically going to paint things in?
I guess I'm going to tone it all to some degree. I mean, you could make the argument that there's a little bit of white on the right edge, you know, but I think it's just close to white. So we're going to start with our building's shapes, you know, together in a single mass, and then separate out the building in the foreground from the background. So that's the plan. Looks like there's a blemish on my paper, but hopefully it'll land in a dark area. All right. Charcoal's nice because it lets us cover our paper pretty fast.
I do want to tell folks that all charcoal powder is not like the type that Ashley got.
The pellets that I know.
I've never seen that before with the pellets, but the charcoal powder that I have is definitely powder.
That's good.
It is so powdery that when you open it, you can kind of see a little bit of a waft of smoke come out. Like charcoal smoke.
Yeah, I can see a little bit coming off my brush. It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Got our big background dome.
Yeah, this is a challenge. Littleton25 says this looks like a challenge. All of these are challenges.
I always bite off more than I can chew,
especially in the time frame that we're working with.
Yeah.
You got to keep in mind, this show is called Gettin Sketchy for a couple of reasons. One, we're creating sketches. It's really difficult to create a completed drawing inside of 45 minutes. So keep that in mind. And also, Ashley and I are pretty sketchy, so it has a double meaning.
Yeah.
I know.
You might catch us out on the street corner late at night.
Another good brush to use to apply powdered material, whether it's powdered graphite or powdered powdered charcoal, is a mop brush.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have one of those really soft mop brushes, somewhat like a makeup applicator, those work really well as well.
All right. Pretty much found most of our shape now. And of course, we'll go into this with our kneaded eraser and lift some of it out.
Okay, we have another super chat,
wow.
So we'll give that a cheer.
Thank you so much. Very encouraging.
And that super chat is from Dale, and he says, whether TV, YouTube, A-Prime, or any of the other time stealers, the virtual instructor is my favorite, and I get to learn stuff too. So thank you so much for that, Dale. We really appreciate it. And Dale is always around. So we appreciate you being around as well, Dale.
All right, getting our front dome.
So you're looking at the two buildings as basically one shape at this point.
The positive shape is kind of what I've been focused on right now. That's right. Okay. Let's see. Now, I think I want to go up just a touch higher. And these soft edges should serve us well. Now, without, I haven't loaded my brush again. Just, it's pretty empty. I'm just using the charcoal that's already on the paper to get away from the white of the paper. So,
all right, we have another super chat.
Holy moly!
We really appreciate it, guys. This is from Enrique, who says, I am so glad to see your videos again. I have a question about ink drawings. Is there an advantage to nib pens over technical pens? And I prefer nib pens over technical pens. And the advantage is the variety that you can create with the line. Nib pens they tend to have a little bit more of an organic mark compared to the technical pens. And it depends on what nib you're using. On some of the nib pens, the tines are designed so that when you push extra hard or a little bit harder on the nib, the tines actually open up a little bit and allow more ink to flow. You can't get that from a technical drawing pen. The disadvantage to using nib pens, of course, is you got to have a bottle of ink and you got to be continually dipping it into that ink. And you have to clean the nibs when you're done. But definitely the nib pens are my favorite over the technical pens. But the advantage to technical pens are, of course, once they are dried up, you can just throw them away and buy another one. And you don't have to worry about cleaning anything either.
All right. I'm going to just go ahead and start doing a little drawing over top of this now. We'll try to sketch out about where our forward building is going to be. And just trying to use the edge of the picture plane as a guide for about where I need to go with some of these lines. Let's see. We do have some perspective. We're kind of looking up and upward. And so I want to try to address and study a few of these angles in the very beginning so we don't lose them later in the drawing. All right, so that's good. So this point, I think to me it looks like it's about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom of the picture plane. And there's a little statue, a little dark statue right above this point if you're looking for it in the reference. So that's what I was kind of measuring with my tool. I was trying to find.
Yeah!
Had an inadvertent cheer going on. It is.
Oh gosh.
I'm pushing all the wrong buttons, guys. Sorry. It's all my fault.
Okay, now let's see. For the other side, well, we'll go ahead and we'll just work around our dome a little bit. Discover our little detail on the top while we're passing by. And of course, all these marks that I'm putting down with the Vine charcoal, I'm going to go back and go over them with our stump and tortillon and really work those values down a little bit. It's a pretty thin piece of Vine charcoal. I can really feel it trying to break, trying to bend. Use a light touch with this stuff.
Yeah, and Ashley's kind of holding it like a pencil, but you can hold it with your forefinger and your thumb as well.
You can break off little pieces and work this way. Sometimes I'm afraid I cover up too much of the drawing, but we may have to do that because it is very, very flexible.
Marina asks, is this on every Wednesday? It's on every Wednesday during the season. So what we'll do is we'll do 10 lessons, so 10 drawings. I'll do 5. Ashley will do 5. Next week, I'll do the drawings since Ashley's doing the drawing this week. And then we'll have a wrap-up show at the end. So there's actually 11 episodes. And on that wrap-up show, we'll look at all the drawings we created during the season and we'll critique them. And then we'll take a few weeks off. If you do like our live broadcast, then you'll like the live lessons, which we do every week. But the live lessons are for members at thevirtualinstructor.com. So we don't do that on YouTube. That's over at the Virtual Instructor.
All right. So far, I think things are landing on the page in about the right places, but we'll pause and make a judgment here in just a moment.
And it's important to note, too, that it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, too. If you get wrapped up in trying to be perfect, especially with charcoal, you're never going to finish anything. You're going to get frustrated. So allow yourself some looseness here. And charcoal is definitely a drawing medium, but it is really closely related to painting. So you're wanting to think in terms of shapes of dark and light value. That's the darkness or lightness of color. And at this point, Ashley has basically blocked in the overall shape, and now he's going in and defining edges. But I'm willing to bet at the end of this drawing, those edges are going to be gone.
Yeah, well, it's all going to get mushed in place. That's a good point, Matt. All right, so let's just double check that we've maintained the sort of the slight tilt of our composition because we are looking up. A little bit in 3-point perspective. And I'm going to do a lot of bouncing around. Just initially right now, though, we're just looking for some dark shapes. And I'm not really thinking about what the shapes are, just where they are, what they're in line with that I've already drawn. Okay, let's see.
All right, I get to push the super chat button again.
Holy moly!
Yeah!
Showing all kinds of support for the 12th season. Love that.
And this one's from Peter. Thank you, Peter. And his comment is, just happy to see that you guys are back.
We're back. All right. So we're starting to remove a little bit of charcoal now. The dome in the back. Kind of fades from lighter to darker, the background dome as we go down. Just tap a little bit of this away. Yellow line paper is doing a pretty good job of hanging on to it, being that we're working on the slightly more textured side. All right, there we are.
Enrique says this charcoal has some gradation, like hard or soft, etc. I think they're asking, does charcoal have some gradation? Yeah, there are harder versions of charcoal. Most of the time, you'll see variety in the hardness when it comes to compressed charcoal. So compressed charcoal is darker and it's a lot harder to erase. You usually are going to use compressed charcoal towards the end of the process if you decide to use compressed charcoal. If you've ever seen a charcoal pencil before, well, that's compressed charcoal in there. It also comes in sticks, and if you use a compressed charcoal pencil, you'll see the designations similar to what we see with graphite, like 4B, 6B. There aren't H versions of charcoal pencils because charcoal is inherently pretty dark.
All right. A lot of charcoal on the surface now, so we'll start slowing down and making some smaller marks.
So you can see here, Ashley can use the blending stump as a mark making tool. It's not just smearing the charcoal. He's using it to move it around on the surface, creating lines and shapes with just the stump.
Can't resist. There we go. Just tap that back.
Now, do you need a replacement eraser for your Factus?
No, I bought a bunch of them.
Okay.
And you know how the larger replacement erasers don't fit in here? Those larger.
Oh, no, I mean
ones.
for the eraser, the other eraser that you can't find, the Factus.
Oh, no. I'm
Okay.
good. It's kind of big anyway.
All right.
So I think we'll be fine. All right, let's keep laying in some lines. Actually, I think I am going to go ahead and break this fine charcoal just because a smaller piece is going to be a little bit less flexible.
And one of the great things about charcoal, I know a lot of people don't like it very much because it's messy, or in their mind it's messy, but it's very easy to manipulate, as you can see. So you can change things very easily and you can pull out highlights and really adjust the values. But another advantage is, Ashley's been working on this drawing for just about 15 minutes, and there's quite a bit of information on the surface already. There already is a good variety and value too. Of course, Ashley's going to be continuing to adjust that, but
That's right.
With a pencil, if you were doing this drawing with a graphite pencil, there's no way you would have this much information in just 15 minutes.
So it makes it such a great sketching medium. All right, got a little more darkness in the middle of our dome. A little bit of light coming from both sides, actually. It's a little bit stronger one side, but because of the heavy atmosphere, not a lot of contrast in that way. Now,
Now, the marks Ashley's making with his blending stump are flowing over the form of that dome. So there's a slight curve associated with them. This is going to help communicate the illusion of form while also developing the value up there, and also a bit of the texture too. So you want to make sure that your strokes that you make, whether with a blending stump or with a mark making material like charcoal, flow over the form of the subject that you're drawing. Those are called cross contour lines, and they really go a long way in developing the illusion of form. Same thing's true if you're using a paint media and you're using your brush strokes. You want to think about the direction that you pull the brush strokes, and they should make sense with the form of the object that you're trying to create in your painting.
And I'm losing my broken pieces. I have to break another one. Okay, we do have all kinds of molding and statues, and they're really just a little bit darker than the rest of the facade. So that's what I'm looking at and looking for right now. Okay.
And there is some talk about the price of materials. Charcoal is a very cheap media to work with, and so are the other materials that go along, or tools that are typically used with charcoal, like the kneaded eraser, the blending stumps. All that stuff is very inexpensive, especially compared with some products that you can buy, art making products, of course.
Yeah, that's true. Get a lot of value out of charcoal. And I like to think of it as the oldest drawing medium. Find it in caves. All right, so these arches we're at an angle to them, so they're pretty distorted. So they don't really make a symmetric arch at the top. So you want to be careful with that while you're finding those. All right, now there's some faux columns and that's where we can see just a hint of a light source, a little bit darker on the right. Let's see, we got a dark shape here. And a dark passage just right through the middle corner. Our bell tower, possibly a bell tower, I'm not sure. All right. Just trying to barely graze the paper at times, and small amounts of material at a time. You know, Matt, I just had like deja vu looking at my own drawing on the screen.
Yeah.
What was that movie we probably all watched as kids where there was a sister and a brother, and like one of them like went into a trance and made a drawing on a mirror, kind of. It was a kid's show.
Yeah.
And then they ended up finding that same building later on. I feel like there might have been an older man in a Winnebago that flew in the air or something like that. Is that ringing a bell for you?
Not at all.
I know it sounds crazy. And like this kid, it was for kids. And he like drew some line drawing of a building on a mirror, I believe. Now, I'm thinking back to when I was probably like 8. So I may have, eyewitness testimony is not that great. So I may be wrong on the details, but I believe it looked a lot like this building. It's coming back to me.
All right, there's some discussion there in the chat. What is easier for a beginner, acrylics or oils? My answer might surprise you. I'm gonna say oils are an easier medium than acrylics.
I agree.
And that is because, like charcoal, oil is very forgiving, and you can manipulate the paint for a long period of time. Oil is actually one of the easiest mediums to work with, I think, paint mediums.
It's really easy to cover up. It's so opaque. It's easy to remove. You can just wipe it off when you've made mistakes or scrape it off. You have lots of time to do that.
Acrylics are, you would think acrylics would be easier because they dry quickly, but drying quickly is actually a disadvantage. You want some time to manipulate the color on the surface. So if you're looking to start with an opaque painting medium, then my suggestion would be to start with water mixable oils, which clean up a lot easier than traditional oils. and they behave in a similar manner as oils, and they dry quicker than oils too. So you don't have to wait like 6 months for the paint to dry completely. So I would start with water mixable oils if you're looking to start with an opaque painting medium. Edie asks, is the movie Spaceballs?
No, not Spaceballs.
Edie is asking now, Escape to Witch Mountain?
That's it. That is it.
See, I never saw that movie.
Escape to Witch Mountain. And I feel like there was like a drawing that this reminds me of on a mirror. I don't know if the word trance is correct. Maybe that's a little strong. But there was some sort of a strange phenomenon where I think it might have been the boy, or it might have been the sister, but one of them drew an image that later on was a place that I think they visited in the movie. So it's funny how memories are locked in there sometimes, and they escape to Gettin Sketchy, not just Witch Mountain.
Just escape to somewhere.
That's right. We're escaping right now. All right, let's see. Straight down from this little statue is a faux column near the bottom. So use what's on our paper to find what's not on our paper. Looking at their relationships. And it looks like I've got some diverging lines. So I'm going to make a little correction there.
Yeah, this is a very detailed subject.
Sure is.
To tackle with charcoal. But this is
time.
Yeah, there's lots of time, and there's the opportunity to suggest the details there.
Yeah.
So everything doesn't have to be drawn out. You can use your eraser. You can use the shapes of darker value that you put in place to create basically the insinuation of the details that are there.
That's right. I like the way you said that. We're just insinuating them. Just looking mostly for differences in value in our shapes, but not necessarily some of the tiny character details. These are inset. We can see that a little bit. We have the deeper shadows at the top. These two circular windows.
No, Jan, I didn't jinx this. There is still a lot of time. There's still 20 minutes left. And a lot of the important details are already in place. Yeah, there's just going to be refinement that happens
we'll be
next.
Doing some spread and smearing and erasing. That's where we're headed soon. All right, now we got another little statue. There's Saint over here. I like how I noticed that they're kind of pitched outward. The statues are leaning outward, Matt, and they would fall over if they were real people. But it makes sense because people are looking at these statues from below. So similar to how Michelangelo elongated David's head because it was seen from below, it lets people kind of see more of what's going on. Actually, it kind of plays a trick on what should be the correct perspective, but it helps people see. These statues are pitched outward a little bit.
Now, there is a comment here. I want to try water-soluble oil pastels. I've never heard of those. I'm not really sure how that would work.
Gosh, me neither.
Because the oil in oil pastels is different from the oil in oil paints. And water mixable oil paints, according to the manufacturers, are still oil paints. They just are soluble in water, which I can't figure that out either because
the oil molecules have been modified.
Yeah, they must have been really. But is it still oil paint?
It is. It's still oil. It just accepts the water. And many artists 20 years ago were really worried that because of the modification, the molecules would be have less adhesive. They just wouldn't stick as well. But it's been quite a few years, and water-soluble oil paints or paintings still look great. So I think a lot of artists have adopted I've adopted the idea of working with the water-soluble oil paints now. You still get all the the benefits, the parts that make oil paint easier than acrylic, but not the parts that make it harder, which is dealing with the solvents and cleaning up.
Yeah, I used the water mixable oil paints as soon as they came out.
You did.
Yeah.
You're cutting it. You were cutting edge.
Well, it was when I was in college.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That is when they came out, wasn't it?
And I
In the late
immediately
90s,
loved
maybe?
them. Yeah, immediately loved them.
Okay. Just got to figure out what we're including and what we're not, because there's so many ridges and details in here, and looks like we're going to be leaving some of those out.
Okay, there's a question regarding the usage of oil pastels in a sketchbook. Can you do that? And also, what size paper would be needed? You can use oil pastels in a sketchbook, but just keep in mind that the paper that it backs up against is going to get some oil pastel on it, and it may mar your drawing. One thing you could do is take a little bit of wax paper and put it in between the pages and cover the oil pastel that way, and that will help protect your drawing. And oil pastels are somewhat more of a bulkier medium, so larger is a little bit better with oil pastels. And there's not a set size paper that you should use, but larger is a little bit better. I like to think of oil pastels as kind of large colored pencils, because the way you use oil pastels are very similar to how you use colored pencils. And that might seem strange, but the process of layering and the way the colors mix on the surface, if you kind of think about a colored pencil hitting the surface at a macro level, that's kind of what you would see with oil pastels. So larger is better with oil pastels as far as paper size. So hopefully that helps.
Now, some of the charcoal on the surface, I can just keep picking up on my stump and drawing with faint lines. So again, like what Matt said, you can think about the medium as being a little bit like painting in that way. But in other places, we're going to need to add a little bit.
Hey, Jim, another question here. Should the paper be 100 GSM watercolor paper? The oil pastels can be adhered to any surface, but you do want to make sure that there is some texture there or tooth. So heavier textures are better for oil pastels. It doesn't have to be watercolor paper. And the weight of the paper is really irrelevant. It's really more about the texture of the paper. For example, charcoal paper is very thin. It has a very light weight, but oil pastels will definitely adhere to charcoal paper. So you want to be looking for texture. A good surface for oil pastels is any type of pastel paper. Any type of paper that's made for pastels is going to work well with oil pastels.
It's pretty dark over here. Definitely need to add a little bit of charcoal to move around.
Still have 14 minutes. We're starting to see some of the planes of the building start to take shape.
Yeah. I am doing a little bit of blowing of the charcoal, so it's not too loud. It's a little messy.
Keith says, Ashley, that looks great.
Oh, thanks, Keith. I appreciate that. We'll use every bit of our time tonight, for sure. Get our sod a little bit darker now by forcing some of our material in places, down into the tooth.
Enrique is asking, will you use some fixative to fix this drawing?
I probably will. Now, I know Matt doesn't use fixative, and I use it very sparingly. Like I just missed workable fixative, usually not the final fixative, over my artwork, and it's not enough to really lock it onto the surface. So it's a very light application of workable fixative that I use, and then it'll still lift off the surface. If you put your hand on it, you'll still get your hand dirty. It just discourages too much of the pastel from coming off. So I use a small amount of workable fixative, and really just enough so that if the drawing is laying under another drawing, it doesn't really not too much comes off on the back of the paper of another piece of paper. So yeah.
All right, looks like Ashley's going to start pulling out some more highlights, maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. We can. And we've got a lot of little details. I'm trying to figure out where to put them because I've squeezed this space just a little bit. I'm going to lighten an area. And then we'll put some of the rhythm in created by those small molded features. Of course, I'm not measuring or counting because it's, Mike would do that if we took this sketch and used it as a study for like a larger painting, maybe in the larger finished artwork, the painting. But for right now, just want to capture the sort of the character of the building, and that does include some of the small rhythmic molded features. Just kind of scribbling those in where they would be, approximately where they would be. I want the impression of more detail the closer the subject is to us. So there's actually a little more detail down here than even up here, because though it's all part of the foreground, some of it's a little bit above our vision, and so it'd be further away and in that heavy atmosphere. So we can push that, creating a little bit more separation maybe sometimes between the parts that are closer and then further away.
Enrique says, thanks, Ashley. Great drawing.
Thank you. Now, I have made a real mess of our background. I think we'll work around there for a minute. it comes together.
You still have 8 minutes left.
Good. Oh, good. There are some subtle differences in value in the background. They're just not strong. So we'll add a little bit of vine charcoal, then blend it in places. Right now I'm going to keep redefining our background dome's contour. We'll just try to put this charcoal back, but not quite as splotchy since my hand's been resting on it so much.
And are you using the kneaded eraser for that?
Yeah, I've got a nice dirty kneaded eraser. I haven't used this yet. That'll help with the gradation. And we'll put it back. Okay.
And you're going to complete this drawing completely with vine charcoal.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're not using any compressed charcoal beyond the supposed powder. And it's listed as, compressed charcoal, but it moves around and smears, which is something that actual compressed charcoal doesn't do as well. Pretty solid. So it doesn't really feel like I'm using compressed charcoal anywhere.
Okay, the question is posed. Have either of us, used a product called Nero Black? It's an oil charcoal. Have you ever heard of oil charcoal before?
No.
I haven't either. Yeah, I've never used that. I'm not, again, that seems like I'm not sure how that would work. Charcoal, pure charcoal is burnt organic material, so it's burnt wood. And if oil is added to it, then it no longer is pure charcoal. Now, compressed
it's not going to be dry anymore.
Right, it won't be dry. And compressed charcoal is not pure charcoal. It has to have some type of additive to it to hold the charcoal together in a compressed way.
I don't think it's just squeezed together real tight.
I'm not sure. I
don't think that would work.
I'm guessing there's probably some clay constituents or something that makes it more like
stick a little bit.
Well, yeah, makes it stick together.
Yeah.
Where oil charcoal, I'm not saying there's no such thing. I'm not surprised with all the things that manufacturers make, but I'm not sure how that would work.
It's seems like a strange combination to me. But you never know. Water-soluble oil paint seemed pretty strange to me. So what do I know? One thing about the compressed charcoal is you do lose your drawing a lot. It starts to fade away while you're working. That frustrates some folks, but it is just sort of a characteristic of the medium. So can't let it bother you. Go back sometimes, like I'm doing now, and add more or re-strengthen an area that has softened too much.
Still 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
And yeah, the comment is somebody made a comment there. Is the figure on the right too dark, or is it just me? Yeah, I think that figure is actually on the building behind the building in the foreground, and that's probably
I think it is.
I think that's why.
Yeah, we need to hit that a little bit with an eraser. It's further away. Good point, because we got to make sure our strong, the whole idea here is we have strong values in the front, foreground, and weaker values as we move further back in space. So this one figure needs to be darker.
Okay. Jennifer has made a comment that makes sense. Mm-hmm. She says that the Winsor Newton site talks about oiled charcoal, not necessarily oil charcoal, but oiled charcoal. Charcoal soaked in linseed oil overnight to produce a richer black mark that doesn't rub off so easy.
I'll try that.
Matthew, I see your comment there. It just says any comment about angular perspective, question mark. Are you referring to 2-point perspective or 3-point perspective? And I'm not sure what comment you're looking for. So if you can, rephrase that and make that a little bit more of a specific question, we can help you with that.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
And Jennifer,
15 seconds.
Jennifer goes on to say that that's the oiled charcoal has to be used quickly, or it doesn't. It's going to lose its oil. It's going to lose its property. I guess.
Well, I would like to experiment with that. I do like to work in charcoal. This is interesting as an option.
All right, we know the time is up.
Okay,
but we can make final adjustments here to the drawing. I'll hide the timer here.
What timer?
So we do have somewhat of a sense of distance there with the building in the background and the building in the foreground.
Work this in a little bit. All right. I think for final adjustments, I think I'll raise that dome up. It was a little flat. Oh, okay. Smear that in.
Dale says, as usual, the drawing is better than the original image.
Oh, well, thanks for saying so, Dale. I appreciate that. It's been a harrowing experience. There's a lot of stuff in here. My eyes have been jumping around like crazy.
And no, Jay, there isn't a specific thing for this season. We're going to pick our own media and our own subject matter this season.
Oh, yeah.
Next season, for season 13, maybe we'll go with the theme. But this season, just like last season, we enjoyed picking our own media and subject matter. So we'll do the same this season.
Yeah. I mean, 13, gosh, that's a big number, man.
Well, it's supposedly an unlucky number, so we'll have to do something themed around 13, maybe.
Right, so we'll have to make it fun for folks and for ourselves. A little bit of shading, just some marks that'll remain. All right, I guess we better stop. So,
all right,
good. There's our atmospheric cathedral sketch, and
are you gonna pull the tape off?
Oh yeah, well let's pull the tape off. Not too bad. Not too bad.
It's not too bad.
I don't know. I may have a mustache on my face.
I don't know about a 13-minute sketch there, June.
What?
She suggested a 13-minute sketch. Now, this is where you're going to really see the value contrast here as Ashley pulls the tape off.
This is the fun part.
With a little bit of border, with that powdered charcoal in the sky, with the tape around it, you really can't see how dark that value is. Value is relative. It's the way we perceive value is based on the values around it. So once that tape is removed and we can see the whiteness of the paper return, then you'll see just how dark the sky is.
I really want to keep the border white. My fingers are pretty dirty. Trying to use cleaner parts of my chamois. Hold my paper down so it doesn't tear. And of course I'm pulling directly away from the artwork at a 90-degree angle.
And Brazen Spirituality says, maybe for season 13, make polls and let members vote for subject and materials. We did that for one season. I can't remember what season
there was. Voting, wasn't there?
Yeah, we had voting.
Did a little bit of voting.
And that was the season we did the game show theme.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I enjoyed that. That was fun. All right.
All right.
So now we can see it. It's on a whiteboard, too. There we go.
Very good to see some contrast there.
Yeah.
All right. A couple comments. Great work, Ashley. Jan says, so satisfying.
So
got a couple of thank yous and great jobs. Looks great, Ashley. Very nice.
Yeah, it was a fun one.
All right. Well, I think that's
definitely
it.
Getting sprayed because it's a loose surface. So I'm not dissatisfied with how the color line paper worked. Was a little bit on the fence with using the rougher side because I did want to do a lot of smearing, but it seemed to smear just fine. So no problems there. Canson paper comes through again.
Awesome. Well, very good. Well, I guess we'll switch out over here then.
All right, let's do it.
All right, guys, thanks for sticking around to see the conclusion of this drawing. I hope you enjoyed watching that drawing come to life as much as I did. Next week, I'll be doing the drawing. I don't know what materials and I don't know what subject matter at this point. So that'll have to be a surprise, but we will do the same thing here next week at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Of course, that time is different for you depending on where you are in the world, but we're glad that you joined us this evening. Ashley, do you have anything else to say to folks?
I'm just glad we kicked off the season. So we've got 10 more episodes to go. Make sure you mark your calendars and you don't miss one.
Absolutely. So again, if you like this kind of stuff, make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And we will see y'all right here next week. And I'm looking forward to it. Good night, everybody.